I wasn't planning on uploading this month. The last 2 months I was on a bit of a content grind, right? 8 videos. So I decided to take a break and focus on some other things. And I was certainly not planning on making another Halo Infinite video so soon, but I have to talk about the latest update and Halo 3 Refueled. If you haven't watched my previous 2 videos, let me sum up how I feel about Halo Infinite's multiplayer. And the way I feel towards it is just indifference, really, because in my opinion, it's quite mediocre. Right? I don't think it's a great experience, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's whatever. It feels like I'm just going through the motions anytime I play. There's no sort of emotional investment, and I blame that on the lack of any sort of, you could say, wow, Halo Infinite saved Halo, man. The sandbox interactions, the player sandbox interactions are crazy, but what 343 looked over was the player environment interaction specifically, right? And what I mean by player environment interactions are all of the outside of the box sort of gameplay opportunities. And one example of what I'm talking about is this video I found on YouTube a while ago. And this guy, as you can see in the clip that I'm going to play here, right? He uses all of these items, right? The sniper rifle, the mongoose, the grav lift, all of these sandbox items in a completely unintended method, right? And that is thanks to the physics engine, that is thanks to all this stuff that Infinite, it really can't compete, because Bungie, they didn't try to restrict the player, they didn't try to control them, right? If the player found cool shit, let it happen, but for whatever weird reason, 343 got rid of all of that stuff that made Halo unique ultimately, and not just they didn't get rid of anything, that's the wrong word. They watered the game down for their broader audience they're so desperate to have, Call of Duty kids that would go,
Ew. You mean 2 players can touch and not go through each other, man? Like, seriously? Also, why isn't the TTK like 150 milliseconds, man? This is not cool.
so the, you can hear the frustration, man, how I feel about this. 343, I'm gonna keep repeating this over and over again, but they have an ego. They think they know what they're doing, but they don't, honestly, when it comes to things like this. Okay, so you might be asking, what about Halo 3 Refueled itself? How's the playlist? And I'll say the maps are okay, right? Most of them aren't one-to-one, but like slight reimaginings, and honestly, especially the Lockout one, I like, so the maps are not bad, but there's one issue, stark issue, and it's that the scaling for each map, it's inconsistent, right? Some were made with like sprint in mind, others were not, so it's very weird going from map to map, it's inconsistent. Editor here. I'm here to say that the pit is so much better than Imperium, that fucking purple Taco Bell looking piece of shit. Now, another issue of the playlist, well, it's not an actual issue of the playlist, but rather the underlying game, and it's the fact that certain game modes play very weird, because, like I just said that I was gonna mention that 343 has this ego, and it comes into play again. They have an awful habit of fixing things that aren't broken, right? For example, why did they need to make Oddball a round-based mode? How does that make any fucking sense? Like, explain it to me. And the same thing they did with King of the Hill. Now you have to score 3 points by holding the hill for like 30 seconds or something. I don't know, man. It's so goddamn stupid. It doesn't even make any sense. And they are literally ruining these game modes just because, we have to do something different, because, old stuff is not good. We have to change the fundamentals, right? Their ego, man. And you might be asking, why are you getting pissed off particularly about the game modes? And it might have something to do with the skill-based matchmaking in this mode. Oh yes, our good old friend skill-based matchmaking is back to play. Skill-based matchmaking is like that one kid at elementary school during recess time, right? He has Down syndrome, he picks his nose, and he weighs like twice the weight as anyone else, right? And he has a temper, and he tries to come to your friend group and say, hey, can I play along? While, his pinky's in his nose, and he takes it out and he's like starting whipping his hand everywhere, and it's like, fuck off, man, right? And particularly, right, skill-based matchmaking is through the roof now in Halo Infinite, right? Halo 3 refueled, more like MLG refueled, right? In my experience playing this game, and I've been playing since Season 4, right, the SBMM has been rather lax, right? Because Infinite was a dead game, right? Like, what was it? 98% player base was just left, right? Remember that? Remember the Steam charts? Well, Season 5 came along and undoubtedly gave the game a huge population boost, so what do these opportunistic motherfuckers, or, you could say, the blame goes on 343 either way, because, right, either they manually turned up the skill-based matchmaking themselves, or they put in an algorithm in place that automatically does it, so that's just the opportunistic nature of these guys, you know what I mean? Oh wow, thank you for coming back to our dead game. To show us, to show our appreciation, we'll just make the games fucking sweaty as hell. I've pretty much given up on modern FPS multiplayers because of this skill-based, engagement-optimized matchmaking system. Why would I want to play a game that is literally rigged against me? Right? Ask yourself that question. Why would I want to play a game that is rigged? Ask yourself that question. Genuinely ask. Why don't I'll tell you who needs to ask this question actually. AAA devs, right? When you sit down and make a game design choice, just ask yourself the question, right? So if I want to implement a retarded system like this, I would ask myself as a game designer, why would I want to play a game that's rigged? And until I can get an answer for that, I wouldn't implement such a fucking stupid system in the first place. Why don't AAA studios understand that this is a turnoff to literally anyone who is aware of the system, right? I hop on Halo to have fun and fuck around with the toys that the game gives me, right? So even in the first place, Halo Infinite had really boring toys, right? But then I'm not even allowed to use the fucking toys, right? The fucking shitty toys, right? So the toy box, right? And let's say you go to this person's house and they just have like a bunch of fucking Barbie dolls instead of actual interesting toys, right? And when you try to, because you're just sitting there and you're stuck at this person's house for the next, 3 hours, right? While your fucking mom is talking to the other guy's mom or whatever. And so you just reach in and you might as well try it out, right? Since you honestly have nothing to lose at that point. And then the kid comes along and he fucking it slaps your arm and he's like, no, you can't play with those, man. First we gotta do this, Barbie RPT party or whatever fucking shit the fucking weird ass kid comes up with when you're at his fucking house. That is literally skill-based matchmaking, right? Skill-based matchmaking is the mantra of no fun allowed, right? It just blows my mind, man. Right? And all of this manipulative systems for player retention or whatnot, you would retain players a lot better if you made an interesting game. And then on top of that, the skill-based matchmaking systems are also unironically anti-competitive inherently, right? So what the skill-based matchmaking system does is that it looks at you, how well you do, right? And basically it finds clones of you to play against, right? So what it will do is that it will look all over the world for someone who's on a similar level as you, and then match you with that person. How is that fair when you account for connection, right? So let's say this guy's playing on 50 ping, I'm playing on 100 ping, or maybe even 200 ping, or later today, right? I mean, today, it was earlier, excuse me. I fucking was matched into a fucking Australian server on 400 ping. You cannot make this up. Fucking 400 ping. I was put into this lobby. Right? 400 ping. And then on top of that, because, you know, 343 likes messing with the little things, like, you know, I explained earlier how they messed with game modes, how they messed with the, what's it called, how they, you know, you can't grenade jump, you can't do any player collision, you can't do that kind of outside of the box thinking sort of stuff. You know what they also tweaked with? Because of their just massive ego and because they know anything they do is good game design apparently. The random items and random, like each weapon rack will have a random item in it. It might be a commando, it might be a BR, it might be a bandit. Even on some maps, sometimes the sniper will spawn in a completely different place. I think on high ground. I mean high ground. How does that? So you want to make such a strict and competitive mode, right? Where you're fucking matching basically people maybe within like 5 percentile of your own fucking skill, and then at the same time you want to just introduce all this RNG and BS. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Come on. And this entire system is so scummy. It really is. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'll mention it again. 343, they saw the population boost, so either them or whatever system they have in place to turn up the skill-based matchmaking and make it tighter, it's really nasty and disgusting, right? The people, they come back to your game, and then what do? You stick a middle finger out at them and you say, fuck you, fuck off, get off my lawn, even though you're the one trying to throw a cookout or something, you know what I mean? Come on. Also, not to mention that you make the searching times much longer in the process. And it's just these companies, man, they all really think the same at the end of the day. They're literally driven by profit. And this reminds me, just earlier right now, I was watching a, BT, the Godfather himself. He uploaded, right, a video saying that I'm hoping Microsoft turns down SBMM, Phil Spencer leaked emails, but I'm here to tell you, right, I played the beta, right, I have a video on my channel, it's very sloppy though, and this video is probably going to be very sloppy itself, but of me just talking about MW3, right, the beta, it was very sweaty, right, it was the last time I decided to play matchmaking on a game of crazy skill-based matchmaking, and it's like Cold War and this new COD game are just on a completely different level, right? So I understand how bad SBMM is there as well, but I'm gonna tell you the truth, right? Microsoft doesn't give a shit, because if they're letting their flagship title, right, their 20-year-old IP that, if they're letting it fall into this state, you hop on MCC, even if you're not even that good of a player, right? Even if I can't even tell if MCC has skill-based matchmaking, because all you'll fucking match are just like people who are been sweating since 2006, basically, right? Like literally, Halo Reach is the only game you can probably play casually in that entire collection of games. That is the only casual matchmaking experience, and I don't even like playing Reach. That's the thing. And you look at Halo Infinite, and what do you see? It's fucking sweaty as hell. So when you look at those two games that are directly under Microsoft, and they're letting this happen, what makes you think they'll just undo this for COD? You're a fucking moron if you believe they're gonna just revert it. You're a fucking moron, right? Before you start saying, okay, we're saved by Microsoft, look at the games Microsoft actually owns and how they're handling them. Come on. And that reminds me, I saw another video earlier. It was a guy talking about GDC, and apparently the guy who is responsible for the matchmaking in 343's titles is the same guy apparently responsible, or he has a hand in messing up the Call of Duty matchmaking experience. I'll link it as well. I'll link the guy who talks about it in the description. And it just goes to show, man, the blood on the same hands or whatever. It really makes you think. So don't hold your breath. Don't think that any big company buying another company is gonna save you at the end of the day. So what was I talking about here? Yes, how EO matchmaking is just being annoying itself. So another anecdotal sort of experience I have here is I've been playing a lot of CS2 these days, right? Because hypothetically, this is a game that, will reward your skills and tactics, right? Teamwork, your aim, your game sense, the knowledge of all that, yada yada yada. But I've also noticed some weird BS going on, right? That's sort of stuff that will never happen in global offensive, honestly, right? So this ranges from really small things to, big, blatantly obvious stuff. But there are things like, for example, I would say at least half of the games are either an unwinnable one that you're given, right? Or the easiest steamroll of your life. So basically, we're talking about games that go, 13-4, or you'll be given the 4 on that sort of situation, right? Or sometimes you're playing a game, right, and the score is 10-12. I meant to say 10-2. And then the underdogs suddenly make an insane comeback and unironically clutch like 13-11, right? And then you have more personal stuff like, some games, or even within rounds, you're just, your aim is consistent, you can nail those headshots, your sprays are good, and the next game you can't, right? And I know CS2 is like, the sub-tick system is broken, a lot of weird stuff is going on, but recently I saw a video theorizing about Valve potentially having a more sinister intention behind everything, and I'll leave it in the description. It's a good video, you should watch it. So there you have it. Something that would have been potentially amazing was instantly squandered by a foolish idea on how to maximize player retention. Funnily enough, for every 2 matches of Refueled I played, I would rage quit out of another. So much for player retention, right? And trust me, I am not that guy who rage quits when faced with the slightest adversity. Modern matchmaking makes me feel genuinely frustrated. And I'm no psychology expert, but I don't think frustration equals retention. Anyways, I'll see you on the next one.